table is an application to join or give Bill money to re-up. So let's keep our membership strong. Bill, would you like to update us on the educational effort, or do you want me to?
You can, since you speak better about it.
Well, I'm a bit better. Bill and I, look, we put together some ideas on how in the Crawford County school system we might provide resources or help the teachers in the school system here to incorporate local county history and family history into the courses that they have. And so Bill and I met with Brandon Johnson, the superintendent, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he was very excited about it, energetic about it, and he was supportive. Monday, Sherry and I met with Tara Carruthers, who's the principal of the middle school, and she was too, and we've agreed to 3 action items so far. There's going to be, we're going to help work with them to set up tours of the Proctor House, content, all the stuff that goes with it, so the kids can have a great experience at the Proctor House. And number 2, we've got a field trip for the teachers, interestingly enough, set up for September. Teachers are going to come, and we're going to have things set up here in the Historical Society on the 25th of September, I think it is, to show them resources here that they could use in their classes. And then we're also going to go over to the library and show them those resources over there. And then we're going to go to the annex and blow them away, right, Roberta? To just see the amazing resources here. And they've already seen some samples, and they like that a lot. And we're going to be using that booklet that in the past the society has given to students about the county history. They're going to like and use that too. So we hope it's going to make a real difference for the kids in Crawford County to feel better connected to the area and better connected to their families as well. So that's that effort. Now, preview of coming attractions. Hi, Cuz. On June the 11th, it is very, very important that you not schedule anything else, that you be here. Because if you knew me as well as Sherry knew me, you know that my first priority is food. So the whole topic on our next meeting in June is food. Old-time foods and recipes. So we're going to have we're going to all do things here. Bring some dish you like, bring small samples or recipes or stories that go with the food, and we're just going to share those things. I know, Sherry, what are you going to do? Persimmon cookies. And I am in the process of making leather breeches beans. I always say jeans. Beans. So you're going to get to sample that.
They're good.
They're looking sort of weird at this point, I got to tell you. A vote against, a vote for. Okay, now so what other kind of things might you bring? Not necessarily commitment, but think about it. What could you bring?
You might bring squash and sweet potato pie.
Yes. Squash and sweet potato pie. Oh, that sounds good.
They're mixed together. It's not 2 different pies.
All together. Love it. Hey, what else? Anybody else got some ideas on what you might bring?
I might bring persimmon pudding.
Oh. I need to quality sample it before you bring it in. Yeah, just to be sure. Anybody else have some ideas?
I might bring chicken and dumplings.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll be thinking. Look, it doesn't have to be fancy or exotic, and you don't have to bring large quantities, but and you might just bring a recipe and say, hey, there's a family story associated with this, or we always ate this on this family get-together, whatever it is. Oh, I'm making hardtack. It's like in the Civil War, they would take biscuits of hardtack and it's essentially water and flour. So we probably have to get a waiver so that people don't break their teeth if they try to do that. Anyhow, June 11th, I go on too far here. Also in news, the commissioners signed the agreement to digitize the county records of genealogy value. So that was a big milestone. Thank you, Roberta, for all your help in that process. And so we're off and running there. And in a few weeks, just words to the wise here, Sherry and I will be recruiting folks like you and church groups and what have you to help prepare documents for digitizing, like taking them out of envelopes where they've been stuck for 100 years, flattening them and getting them ready to digitize. So it'll be fun to do that. Now, to the main topic, which I've been looking forward to. But I got to tell you, who remembers the Western Auto Store in English?
Of course.
Oh, man.
That's my home now.
Your home?
Yeah, that Western Auto was over here too.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I thought about that. When I was a kid, I was just, boy, that Western Auto Store, I wanted to grow up and have a Western Auto Store.
Yeah.
And Tammy's dad, man, you
Yeah,
shook
do you
his hand.
remember the first Western Auto store? I do. Me and Tammy might.
No, I don't, but I know where it was.
Where was the first one?
Well, it's burned.
Her dad ran that. Her dad ran that.
I know it.
Oh, I didn't know.
I said Tammy and I probably the only one here that remember. It was down there, you know, by going to the golf station.
Yeah.
Right across the street from there. And then we had a fire and those buildings burned and my dad owned the house there and it burned.
That was later though, the Western Auto Store was already out of it. The Western Auto Store was out of it by then.
Oh,
You remember Johnson's Grocery?
Yeah.
Did Johnson have the grocery store in there at that time?
Yeah,
But anyway,
that was where it was.
Tammy's dad bought or rented that little building there, his little grocery store. And, one little corner, he put in Western Auto. Had wagons, bicycles, and maybe a push mower or two, or, you know,
Pretty much
something like
everything.
that.
Everything you'd ever want, I figured. Well, it was great. So, you know, Tammy comes from this great family, and Tammy graduated from schools here in the county, from English. No, did you graduate
Crawford
from
County.
Crawford County? Okay, you're a youngster, aren't you? Crawford County High School,
She's
and
a young whippersnapper.
and worked in DC for a while. Met Frank, my cousin. They married. They retired. Came back to Crawford County. Good for you. But not by far. Well, I sort of put retired in quotes for Tammy because, to tell you the truth, I don't know if you were busy or busier now than you were.
I've been busier now sometimes.
Okay. Tammy's been working with the Civic Club, right? Okay. Civics Club on a variety of things, but the big project has been to figure out a way to restore and bring back to life, resurrect the old English mill. And it's a huge project. I hope that all of us can find some ways to support it, morally and otherwise perhaps, because it is so big. But Tammy is going to share with us tonight some information on the English mill, some history of it. I can guarantee you're going to find out things that you didn't know before about the English mill, and something about the hopeful future. So thank you very much for doing this tonight.
Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, I guess so.
Should we dim the light?
Yeah, probably.
Where do they have it? Is that too much?
There we go.
There we go. So, this photograph is from 1906. It's the oldest picture we have of the mill. We think it was built in 1897. Certainly the company was started in 1897, but I want you to pay attention to this little part here in the foreground. So, the mill that is standing is the tall piece, right? And there is a little building to the side, but that's not this building here. You can kind of see, it looks like it had like a little retaining wall or something, and then we've got another picture of it, but you can also see that corner sticks out beyond the mill just a little bit, and the current building, doesn't do that. But we think maybe, because it generated electricity for the town, that maybe in the smaller part was where the generator, the electrical part was, but we don't really know that for sure. Anyway, so the English Electric Light Company was started in 1897 in the building we know as the mill.
Other way.
There we go. And it went into business by selling 100 shares at $100 a piece for $10,000 in 1897. I feel like that was just a lot of money for 1897. So it was a big project, and its initial five directors were James Fleming, Otis Kirkpatrick, John McCoy, John Weathers, and Joseph Finch. And the only two really, well, I guess the McCoys, the Weathers, and the Finch I've all heard of, but I don't know. Others I don't. Pardon?
Patrick's in Georgetown.
Oh, really?
But I've only heard the name in the last couple of years up there.
So I don't know. And then a year later, it was transferred from Duffin and Gregory, and I don't know when Duffin and Gregory got it. This is all coming from records at the courthouse, or from Roberta's archives. Duffin and Gregory, Joseph Finch, and William Luckett, who I believe is Kenneth Luckett's grandfather, probably, to Elijah Robertson. So those are more familiar names, certainly Gregory and Luckett and Robertson. And then sometime between 1902 and 1907, it became the English Milling Company. So it started out as electric lights, and then it became a milling company, and then it's doing both. Because in March of 1907, the English Milling Company got new machinery to provide lights to the town. So it provided the first electricity to English, which I did not know when I started this project. And then Alfred Turley had it for a while, and then people remember the Turley House? Remember the Turley House? Nobody? Jenny does. It was the one next to the hangars right on East Fifth Street, the really big with the turrets and everything. Remember that big old house?
What was your question, Devin?
The Turley House?
What about it?
Do you remember that house
You mean the one,
on East Fifth Street?
oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah. My mother always called it that, and I never knew who the Turleys were. But so anyway, I think it's interesting he came up. Anyway, then in 1916, they got 9 telephone poles and cross arms were in the town, were transferred to the milling company. The ownership was transferred from the Southern Telephone Company. So my understanding is it also ran the telephone service back in that era. And then we'll hear about a number of fires. In 1920, there was a fire that destroyed the Dykus blacksmith shop, which was across the street. So I think that was across the street where the mobile station was at. But that burned in 1920. No damage to the mill. And here's another picture of the mill. You can see that little side building better. 1930 photograph. I love it, those guys are just hanging out, the woman in the window. And then I wonder if, see that taller building back there? I wonder if that was the Hub and Rim factory?
Oh, for wheels? Wagon
Wheels. Because there was a factory there. Go ahead.
A question on that picture. It's right by the railroad track, but it doesn't really look like there's any facilities to move material to and from railroad cars. Do you know if they ever did that?
There's a siding that ran right where those guys are sitting,
The line.
and if you go down there now, you still see, where they had built with, great big beams, a little bridge to cross the creek. There's a creek right there on the west side of the thing. And it's all buried, and you can still see the railroad ties still attached to some rail, and if you just follow, so that would be like where that little building is. If you follow the trajectory of it, you can see that there was at one point a siding that came right up to where that concrete there that they're sitting on came.
Okay.
So,
That's
then
what
of course
that
it's
is.
dead ended, and if, so you take
Yeah.
the rail car up and then push it back to the main line. Right?
And then,
Yeah.
you know, Philip Williams talked about how where the hub and rim was, that there was a hardware store over there
Mhm.
to the west of it, and that the railroad line ran right to the front porch of that hardware store. But I don't know what that,
It seems that,
Look like.
that English area, because there's also at one point what's it called, a train shed for repairing train, you know, there must have been, it was quite a rail hub at, one point with multiple lines, multiple rails, so.
That Alf Turley had a hardware store.
that was it. I think so. That was beside the mill.
I don't know where it was at, but I know he had a hardware store.
Well, that's what Philip Williams says. It was on that west side of the mill, that lot to the west there. And then look back. Can you see back behind, just to the south of the mill there, that, thing that is sticking out there? That, somebody had a drawing, and I should get a photograph of that, that there was at one point, like where we considered the front door and the front porch of the mill, that to the south of that, there was another little building. And according to Philip Williams, again, when they shelled the corn, they put the corn cobs in there, and then they added those corn cobs back into the feed when they ground feed.
Yeah.
So I think that's that little building. I just noticed that the other night when I was kind of looking them over for the first time. And then this John gave me this picture. I was so thankful for it.
From here.
From here. So this is it was a flour mill, and it sold white onyx and royalty flour. And this is when it's owned by the Longest family, and that's, if you guys remember Robert O. Longest, that's him all the way to the left as a boy. I can still hear my dad saying, well, there's Robert O. Yeah. So,
You know, the first time I looked at that picture, I thought they got lumber stacked up and leaning on the side back there, but then I looked more closely, and those are the chutes feeding the flour mills, and they're wood, made of wood.
yeah. And so this must be the first floor with the chutes coming down from the top, right? So the grain would be upstairs and they come down.
That would be the plant, yeah,
Yeah.
using gravity.
Yeah. So anyway, I love that, picture. So the Longest family, and I don't remember Guy Longest. I remember people talking about him, but I don't remember him. But in 1921, he resigned as postmaster, think about that, to manage the mill. And he was president of the mill when they were installing a new plant to provide power. So even, I don't know if that was prior to 1921, or they were doing that again after 1907, then again in 21, they were upgrading. And then this is when they leased the Rice Hub and Rim Company. This is from the paper. So, a strip of land on the west side of the building. So in 22, again, the Dykus Blacksmith Shop and the Rice and Hub, they all burned down. And the mill was saved from the flames by the hardest work. I like that.
So the place next door burned in 1920 and 1922?
I don't know. Two separate newspaper articles. I think there were 2 fires. Well, actually, there were 3 fires, I know. So I think there was a lot of, especially with the blacksmith shop.
Have you talked to Roy Longest about this?
I haven't. I should.
Yeah, you ought to talk to him. He's still under arrest for.
Okay, I should. You're right, I should. Yeah. So, and then in 25, so even though Guy was managing it in 21, in 25, he became the owner. And then there's some documentation that the J.C. and Lou Longest were involved with the company as early as 1908. So, I mean, the Longest were involved for, well, at least 20, but probably more like 40 years. Because in 41, that's when they had the big fire that caught the very top of the mill. But only had $1,000 in damages before the volunteer firemen extinguished it. So, and their guy is quoted as saying that the flour mill will be back up on Saturday, so not to worry. But that's a current picture of the mill, so you can still see the chars from that 1941 fire on the top floor. So I just think it's so cool when you're in there, and this little thing to the right where these stairs are going, they look like they're just the stairs suspended in air. I mean, they're really cool, because it's not a full attic up there. I mean, it's like some attic space, but it's not another third floor, you know? But that's where all the chars are from that. And then this, so I have a gap in the owners. I know who owned it in 41, the longest still had it. And I know in 81, Donald and Norma Laswell had it. But from 41 to 81, I don't know who the owners were. So that is something that I really want to spend some time in the library trying to find out. But if any of you would ever come across any information in that time frame, I would be thrilled. Roy Moore had it for 8 years. I didn't know him. The bank had it for 1.5 years. Then the Harveys, I remember that they had it for 4 years. And then Edwin Wolf, I didn't know him, he had it for like 6 months. And then Mullis Petroleum, or Elsie Mullis, now her estate, has been the owner since 1995. So they put in the laundromat. And so that was, I would say 95 to 2005, because I think about 2005, that was the end of their time. So, and they're the ones, her estate is who will be donating to the Civic Club. So this is just a more recent picture, maybe from the 80s or something. It's all cleaned up, that one at least. But you notice these big windows on the side, that's something that changed at some point. Because they didn't have any windows when you look back.
Tammy, a question if I could.
Sure.
The outside of the mill has that sort of stamped tin on it.
Right.
Has anybody to this point got an idea of what was the exterior when it was originally built?
Well,
Or was that original?
I think that was original. Because I think if you go back to that 1906 picture, that's what's on there.
Oh, okay.
The old store buildings had that same stuff on the ceiling.
Yeah,
That's a
right.
long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has lasted a long time, and the architect says that they made that exact same stuff,
Really?
no problem, today. Yeah, so it's totally available, it's not so it must have been pretty, common. So, as everybody here knows, since the flood and since the business district came up here, you know, the historic part of town has really suffered, and I think English has suffered overall, just economically. And of course, the older part of town has a lot of blight. And so we're hoping to restore and repurpose the mill. And we view it kind of as a first step in trying to revitalize, not only that part of town, but English as a whole. But kind of focused on what we remember as English, you know? So get the mill going, then try to get some connectivity with the golf course and the area up here and possibly Sycamore Springs. But we hope that and then also we're gonna be having, probably in June, I'm gonna try to host a town hall to talk about where the Old Man English Plaza, there was a plan 24 years ago that was put forth to move Old Man English to Main Street, basically Main and West Fifth, kind of where the Western Auto Store used to be, where the hangars and all that used to be. And nothing was ever done with it, and we got a grant from the Community Foundation to, refresh that preliminary design, but to also just have a discussion, because I hear that there are people who don't want him there, they want him up here. And so what do people really want? Where would they want him to go? And where
Can't
would they
make
want him
everybody
to be?
happy.
Huh?
You can't make everybody happy.
Well, no, you can't,
No matter what you do.
and I think the plan for down there is really a beautiful one.
Yeah.
And if you got the mill going and you had that, because it would be a park, and if you had that park within walking distance, and then you got some kind of a trail going,
Yeah.
you could really make something down there. that would be nice for people. So, anyway, the preliminary designs have been completed, that's kind of what you see on the boards, and I'm gonna show you here a little bit, that they were paid for by a grant from Indiana Landmarks, and then the County Tourism Board, provided the matching funds for that grant. So we're very, very thankful to both of those organizations for making, the designs possible. This is just kind of a current picture of the mill. It's a little bit in a sad shape right now, but inside, it really looks much better. I know it's kind of hard to believe, but and I know maybe it looks a little rugged here, but this is all again the second floor, standing on the second floor, and a lot of these beams here are not structural. They obviously, maybe they supported all those chutes that were going down, There's an old machine that's on the second floor. There's an old machine of some type in the corner that we would definitely try to save. And this room over here is a grain room. They tell me it's a grain room, and the walls in that thing they're just perfect, and they're so smooth. I mean, it's just a cool little room. And then that's the hardwood floor that's in amazingly good shape, but has a lot of bird poop on it. So that's the, and then this is the new design for the mill. So the front would basically stay the same. The porch would get a little updating, but the windows up at the top, the windows down below, and where the door is, all of that would stay the same. The entrance, so currently, there was a place where there was a laundromat. There was a smaller one-story section that kind of sits a little bit below the mill. And that's where the handicap entrance would be. And then above that would be kind of where the kitchen would be. That would have the same level of floor as the mill. So it's a little deceiving the way you see it from the outside, but
Okay, stupid question.
Yes.
Which side is this, like north, south, east, where?
this is facing south.
Non-railroad track.
Because that part, that part's not there.
Well, there is something there.
I don't remember any appendage to it.
Yeah, there is, but it's kind of caving in, and it's not historically significant, because we thought at one point it might be, but when we got into it, it's just really put together pretty ad hoc. There's the side facing 37. So this would be the side, so where those windows are now, you kind of saying, and there's a window at the top. But there are no windows in that middle span, because that's where those green rooms were. There are, so.
Is there a basement?
Yes, there's a basement, and it's really a cool basement. I mean, I should put a picture in here. It has ginormous beams, because they're posts. Because the posts on the first floor, main floor, are like 12 by 12, and in the basement, they're like double that. They're just giant. But it's very dry. I mean, very dry. It's amazingly dry down there. It does get a little bit of water seeping in, but to be as old as it is, and I've been in there when it's poured with rain, I've been in there after it's been raining for days, and there's just like a little bit of water. So it's really in pretty good shape. So we'll go back to one of these old pictures in a minute. And then this would be the side facing the railroad track, facing north, facing the railroad. So we put a deck upstairs so you could see, and then a whole deck along the bottom as well. And big windows on the bottom floor would be an update, but we really wanted people to be able to watch the trains as they go by, take advantage of that. So that's now these, I hope you can see the plans. I tried to blow them up as much as I could. This is it's kind of a little bit like two levels, so that over on the left there is where you would walk in, and there would be like a little lobby that would kind of have a open space, and then there would be some stairs that would take you up to like the kitchen next level, but this would be the handicap entrance, that's where you get into the elevator. So I should go back and say that little out set there, that's the elevator. So, And then you go down into the basement, it would just be like 2 or 3 steps, it's not a big, you know, way down from there. Is where the basement would be, and we hope to have like an area for youth where they could, you know, maybe play shuffleboard or different kinds of games, and have a kind of a hangout area, and then also a gallery which would house, you know, local artists, things from local artists, or some memorabilia from the town, you know. I think about that Grimer's jewelry thing in there sometimes, you know, that would be a fun thing to have up somewhere. And then this would be, the main floor would be a restaurant, and then hopefully a gift shop, like general store kind of thing. And then the kitchen and restrooms and all that with the deck on the back. And then upstairs would just be an area for meeting space, like probably hold about 50 people. Because of the way it's laid out up there, there's not as much space up there as you would think, but you know, if you went to have an anniversary party, a birthday party, that kind of thing, family gathering, and then these are just some different, and it would be all that punch tin, new, but punch tin, same material that's on there now, would be on the outside of it. So, the current owner is the estate of Elsie Mullis and Old National Bank. Actually, when we were about to close and they did the title search and they found out that somehow the mill had been used as collateral for a mortgage that the Mullises had with Old National Bank. So we had to talk to the bank and write them a letter. And anyway, amazingly, they released that mortgage in like, what was it, Frank? It was like a week or something, right? It was like, everybody thought it would take forever, and it just happened very quickly. Then we were about to close again, and someone told us that there had been a gas station on the property. Did people remember the Lone Brothers?
Yeah.
I remember them selling cantaloupes and watermelons, but I didn't ever
Did
remember.
anybody remember the Lone Boys?
Yeah,
Yeah, I do.
Sure we did.
yeah, yeah,
They were my cousins.
were they? Okay,
Buddy Long and his 2 sons.
yeah, so they had a gas station there. And I didn't know that, because in my lifetime, there were no gas pumps. It was just them selling vegetables in the summertime, or I remember the watermelons and the cantaloupes, that's what I really remember, but check out the car over there on the left side there. So it's,
Good old one there.
an old one, yeah. So nobody knows where the pump's above ground or below ground or what, but that also gave us pause. So we went down to Region 15 has gotten a brownfield grant, and I went down to like a workshop that they were having to learn about that. And after it was over, I told them about, we were getting ready to take possession, but now we think there might possibly be gas tanks there, we don't know, and what can we do? And they said, we'll get you on this grant on a priority basis, and the next week they did the phase 1 site assessment. So that's been completed, we're waiting for this petroleum eligibility request to be approved, which should happen in the next week or so. Then they'll do phase 2, that's when we'll really find out, are there any tanks there or not? And if there are tanks there, then they'll remove them. And I mean, all of this is just being paid for through a grant. So, it's wonderful, so we're hoping to take possession by the end of June or so. But, you should see some cleanup down there in the next few weeks. Because we are gonna clean up the vegetation, we can't take down any buildings till we own it, but we can clean up before we own it. And then there's, I don't know how many of you have heard of the Ready 2.0, the big Indiana grant, which also comes with some money from the Lilly Foundation for blight remediation. And they want big transformative projects. They have come to English, at least, 2 different people from ROI, which gives the Ready grants, or which just submits the Ready grants to the state. And then there was another guy who came down from Bloomington not too long ago, who went through the mill, and
Indiana Landmark.
Indiana Landmarks has been here. Lots of different people have come down to see the mill, and when they see it, and I always take them on kind of a little tour. I talk to them about the Old Man English Plaza. I talk to them about the possible trail. You know, I show them Sycamore Springs and I show them the golf course, and that we have these two big assets in town, and we're not really, you know, those people don't ever come into English, or very rarely, you know. They just eat at the golf course or they stay out at the camp, and when I sent them these preliminary designs, the people who are in charge of this grant, they wrote me back and said, we love it, we love it, we think you've got it, we love your project. And they, you know, have been talking to me about it a lot. I know they are gonna go to bat for us. I don't know, there will only be 4 projects under blight remediation in our region, in the Uplands region, chosen. So it's gonna be competitive. And they know that we don't have the match money. I mean, that's just the fact. This is the cost estimate on this project is $2.5 million. So, we're going to ask for $2 million. And then we'll the other 500,000 I think we can put together in various ways. Like the appraisal on the mill is like $90,000. We can use that as part of our match. There's a lot of things, other things than just like money, but we'll need money too. I mean, we'll need donations. You know, we'll be seeking out donors, but the way the match works is it's a 4-to-1 match. So like if we ask them for $2 million, there has to be $8 million out there somewhere, right? And of course, we don't even have $500,000 right now. So, but the last time they did the ready money, they had in the region. It's the region that has to meet the 4-to-1. They had a 28-to-1 match, and she told me there were 3 projects in the region that paid for everybody's match. So we don't have to have the match. The region has to have the match. And so they don't know how it's gonna shake out yet, like what are gonna be those big projects that will provide match for other groups yet. But, you know, I was talking to her yesterday, and she's calculating, because I was telling her I was gonna ask for $2 million, and she said, well, that means you need an $8 million match, and I can hear her thinking like, well, am I gonna have $8 million out there to, you know, but she said, again, she said, we love your project, we're gonna advocate for your project, we understand it, tell your story. She told me that at least 3 times, tell your story.
So what's the region like geographically? What is
It's,
that?
Oh, so Indiana County.
well, yeah,
Du Bois County.
Du Bois, Orange, and then it kind of goes north. I mean, it doesn't go, it's not the same region as 15, but if you look up the Uplands, Hoosier Upland, or the Indiana Uplands,
5 or 6 counties?
8, maybe, 8, 10.
And this is the grants have been submitted, or?
The grant is due Friday. It's due Friday, so it's maybe 2/3 written. Huh?
It's taking me getting sleep.
Not much.
Or is her husband getting?
Okay.
He spent lots of hours writing a bunch of nonsense.
Right.
Hopefully it'll tell the story.
Hopefully we'll tell the story, right, so we're gonna do our best and see how it goes. And then we will be getting out there trying to see contributions from donors. And I say matching funds, but to really, you know, we're gonna have to find a few $100,000 somewhere. I mean, some people who are gonna buy into this project, but we can also take a $200 donation or a $50 donation, or, you know, I mean, I think it's important for them to also know that the community's supportive, you know, so, and I just, John who came from the commissioners meeting, and, you know, they agreed to, I mean, they took a vote in support of the project, just moral support, that's all I asked for, was just their support, so, the town has voted in the past in support of it, so, anyway, I love that picture, because I kept thinking that the barber shop was this building, and it never looked right to me, and I kept thinking, what happened, so, somebody recently told me that the barber shop building that's down there was actually a Farm Bureau office building originally, and I don't ever remember that, so I don't,
And this one's that much closer to
So,
to the
37.
road. Huh?
The Farm Bureau office has some insurance. Your firm Miller was the secretary in the actual, mill.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Okay, okay. Yeah. We'll go back to the original picture, just because I think it's the best one. There, in the middle of that. So there you can kind of see what it looked like. But you can see that press tin was on there from the beginning. It's been there for, I think it's original. And a couple of the windows now are kind of covered over with some newer tin. But they're still under there, so.
That tall chimney also makes sense that they generating electricity in that building.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, I think so too. And that thing on the top that might have been like a vent or whatever, you know, so, but that is not what's there now. There's still something there, but it's not that. So, you might have any questions or thoughts or?
They had a laundromat in there for a while.
Yes. That was, the Mullisons had that.
I think they had some, little, like pinball machine or something in there too for a while, but I'm not sure.
They did, in the main part of the mill, you can kind of see where they had like a little, counter, I guess, you know, maybe like where they maybe sold sodas or chips or whatever, you know, and other people have told me they had pinball machines or different kinds of games, you know.
Were there dates for your vegetation cleanup?
Yes, well, yes, one of our members is gonna, he and his crew are gonna take the big things out, and he said if he didn't get to it this week, he would do it next
Did
week.
you
Oh,
get a
you're
hold?
not looking for volunteers.
No, we're,
Lockers or anything?
no, the things are so big down there. Now, when he gets finished, we are probably gonna go in and then do some more hand stuff, so we might at that point.
You tell them to be careful to preserve that railroad bridge.
I need to call him
Yeah.
about that, yes, that's a good reminder, because
The man that owned the building, used to own that, he owned that filling station that's down there too. Is that not included in that?
it's not included in our deal with him because the old mobile station, or that's what I call it, anyway, the filling station down there, he didn't know it, but nobody had paid the taxes on it, and it got sold at a, tax sale out from under him. And the redemption on it was like $10,000, so he just let it go. But if we would have known, we might have tried to have done something at that point, but we have found out from all the title search and everything that, so there's two parcels where the mill sits, which is hard to believe. This is kind of like where the Lowe Brothers thing was, and then where the mill was, those were two lots, and then directly across from the mobile station, he owned a plot of ground over there. It's just like, almost like a little parking lot, kind of it's right where, you know, that house that sits up on the hill, where their driveway ends going south until you hit where the county starts. He owns that, and he's giving us that as well. And then we owned the west, somehow the Civic Club owned half of that lot, and we bought another quarter of it. So we own 3/4 of the lot to the west. And
Across the creek.
across
the
that little creek, across that little creek, and then we'll own this and the other land he's got
That'd
there.
give you plenty of parking space.
It will, yeah, and we'll tear down the barber shop for parking as well, make that a bigger
Have
lot.
you got a picture of the World War II veterans leaving Langley Department Mail?
No,
I've got one, yeah.
What?
oh, would you bring it next time?
Yeah, I'll get one.
Okay, yes, I'd love to see that, yeah,
It's named some of them on there, some of them I know. One guy was in the window.
oh, really? Cool,
If anybody's like a rail buff, it's really interesting that in that lot across the creek, and what some guy is kind of trying to buy up land in English, just to try to scam things, but he actually bought that little quarter there, but anyway, if you wanna go down there, and just before you go, you're going down, Court Street, Court Street is the west side of that lot across the creek, and you go all the way to the end of that lot where you're about to go across the railroad tracks. Due to erosion, the ground is washed away, and you can see the
Rail line.
a rail line, one rail and the ties attached to it, which is like an old spur. So it's just kind of cool to, hopefully, when we do the renovation, we'll excavate out the old spur and, kind of make it, and of course, one idea would be, put some rail, new rail there, and sit a caboose or something there, just for tourists, people like to see, like, an old rail car or something similar. But the one thing is, the railroad, I mean, they own right up.
Oh, right up to that's one thing we
That's
wanna do
not
soon
much.
is have a survey so we really know where do we own to, but when you look at the back of the middle, where is it over here, like, I mean, we kinda own this and then the railroad owns everything else, I mean, it is really close there. But enough to do, cause there is already a ramp out there, we know we own a little bit there, but we'll have to get all that surveyed. Get it.
There's still any completion of the walking trail.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's been put on hold because of course, one, we can only do so many things at a time, and two, it's a much more expensive project, or could become a more expensive project, and it's complicated getting out to Sycamore Springs. So, but I think if we can get this off the ground and we can maybe start thinking about Old Man English, then I think getting a trail from the mill out to the golf course and up here, up in this area, is maybe doable down the road. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? I mean, but yes, I mean, ultimately, I think to really make this new restaurant successful and this destination of the mill successful, we have to have a few other things.
Yeah.
Going on. I mean, the railroad itself will be of interest, and the fact that people do come to play golf and they do come to camp, it'll give people a place, to come to. I mean, we hope it will be like a destination, but it'd be nice to have some other things going on.
Oh, by the way, how long has this project been underway? How long have you been working on it?
2 years, maybe?
2 years.
A year and a half, 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. The Civic Club started in November of 22, I guess. And we met for the first time in October, November of 22. And officially formed in February. And we had this idea slightly before that.
If you ever wanna know where the idea sprang from, go out on YouTube and Google the Simpsons episode about the monorail. The monorail and she's the guy selling the monorail.
The inspiration.
It actually came through Frank and Eli and I all on a long road trip,
Right.
trying to think about how could you revitalize English and what could you do. And so we started out with all these crazy ideas, and then, I called Mullis, I think it was probably in November of 22, I know it was the fall of 22. And I said, hi, I'm from English, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, now, I just want to tell you, I don't have any money, but I'm kind of interested in the mill. And I said, but I've heard you won't sell it without the gas station. And he said, well, I won't sell the gas station without the mill. I've never had anybody call me about the mill. And he said, what are you thinking? And I started talking to him, and he said, well, what do you think? You think maybe it's $20,000? And I said, well, maybe. I said, but I don't have any money, but I'll be in touch. And he said, okay, great. Well, then Carol, it was me and you and Eric Gilmore from the bank and Dan Curcilius and David Sillings from the town. We met and all this down at the mill, and we went in it and went all through it. And Carol said to me before we met him, no, you're not gonna buy that mill from him. he's gonna give it to you. You just ask him to give it to you. That's what he ought to do. So we went into the mill, we looked around, and at the end of it, everybody else was kind of leaving, and I kind of stuck around, and I thought, I've never asked anybody to give me anything like this in my life. And so I started kind of talking to him and everything, and I said, so, you know, do you think you'd be willing to just donate it? And he said, you know, I was thinking that exact same thing. And I was like, you were? And he was like, yeah, I think we can just donate it. And I was like, okay, so we can all thank Carol that he's agreed to donate it.
And then you had to
Carol,
become,
thanks for that inspirational thought.
Yeah,
but then you had to become a 501(c)(3). So
yeah, then we had to become a
so that you could
501(c).
donate.
That took a while, and then we had to be able to afford to have some insurance on it, and that took a while.
Sell fish sandwiches.
Yeah, right. So every time we get ready to think we're gonna get the mill, something else pops up, but I do think we're.
Well, I do think it's important to have some theme to revitalize as a starting point, because I teach up in Orange County, and, you know, Orleans has their little square, Village their little square, and there's the resort hotels in French Lick, and then there's like, and I would never imagine that building had that kind of history, like a scraggly old thing.
Right.
And I like scraggly old things,
Thanks.
but like particularly scraggly, I had no idea. But it's a starting place to have something that you can, as things build, there's a place, there's
Right.
a center.
It's a
there's
hub.
something.
It's a
Yeah,
hub.
you have to have that,
Yes,
so.
yeah.
Well, we talk about a lot of history here at the Historical Society, but this is history in the making. And by the way, you've made tremendous progress.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a brief break, but Tami, thank you very much. We'll take a brief break.